Thank you. We welcome you to the Unit Record webinar number 1. We are going to be going through the new Unit Record 3.0 enhancement project and providing you with information about how the unit record will operate this year. And we welcome you for taking the time to join us this morning. This morning, we have with us Marla Skelly, who is the Associate Director for Compliance at WSAC. And my name is Ann Voiles. I am the Program Associate for the SFA Division, also at WSAC. Marla, let me just go ahead and turn this over to you.
Thank you, Ann. Well, good morning, everybody. It's just so weird to be back in this presentation mode. It's been a while since we've had to do this, so we have to relearn everything. But I want to welcome you to this training. We're pretty excited because this year we worked on a rewrite, and we're calling it Unit Record 3.0, and there have been some, we hope, really nice changes that will help you when you're providing your institutional information to us. And Ann will be going over the changes in the portal. So what my goal today is to, I'm not going to spend lots of time on these slides. Many of you have seen them before and not much has changed. For you newbies, everybody will be getting a copy of the slides, so you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And everything on this presentation is in the unit record manual. So I'm just going to do a quick overview. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marla Skelly, and I am the Associate Director for Compliance. And I've been in the financial aid world. I even shudder to think how long, but it's been over 35 years. So I've forgotten more than I knew. And I've been with WSAC. I'm actually completing my 5th year, so it's been quite a journey for me. This is the 53rd year of the Unit Record Report and of State Need Grant, I should say, but it's not State Need Grant anymore, it's Washington College Grant. So we still count it as 53 years. For the Unit Record, what the Unit Record gives us is institutional comparisons across the state. So we are able to, through the information you provide, measure the needs of our students in the state. Through the reporting we get, we're able to compare sectors. So we aren't just looking at Washington aid as a whole, we actually break it down into the sectors. So we look at the CTCs, the private for-profits, privates in the 4 years to give us a really good idea of how the aid is being used. So we really rely heavily on the information that you submit. It guides our legislative and other policy decisions. We're able to really relay that information to the legislators when they ask us for information about how the state financial aid is being used. By providing information to WSAC, it minimizes the ad hoc data requests that you all may be getting. It's not unusual for legislators or external folks to ask us for information about you, and we're able to provide it to them in a way that you won't be burdened by that, those requests. The timeline is right now, I believe the unit record is online. We put it on, we were able to get it on last Friday. We will be using the month of July for portal training, and the website will be open for test files, and Ann will talk more about that. The unit record application opens August 8th, and we want reports finalized by October 10th. This is my annual plea to ask you to please start early and try to finish the amount of work that has to be done in order to get those institutional profiles to you in January is pretty daunting. So the earlier you get your unit record done, the earlier we can get the information to everybody else completed, and especially by the start of the legislative session. We start getting requests for information in November and December from legislative staff. So the earlier we can get that information, the better for all of us. So we analyze that data in October, November, and into December. And then we hope to get reports to policymakers by December. And then in January, after we've completed all our work and you've completed your work, the profiles are finalized and you can open that information. So basically, I want to talk a little about the manual. And it's basically split out into 4 sections: the introduction, chapter 1, 2, 3, and then the appendices. I really encourage you all to review that. We have made some changes, and all of the updates from the unit record 3.0 have been they've been put in the manual, and updates, if we have to make them down the road, will be included. But right now it is complete. The appendices really are probably the most important part of the manual, because this is where all the details of the unit record are laid out. Appendix A is the need-based and non-need-based programs, record layout, system edits, those things that prevent file upload, and the import, which is really important. And then D is the quick lookup by financial aid program, and then E is the quick lookup by unit record, report, and field name. Next slide, please. The CSV file that you will be building for submission is where you report only students who receive some sort of financial aid based on the 21-22 FAFSA or WSAC year. It's the files are updated in the CSV layout form with a header row, and it's really important that you review and use this header row, because if anything is missing or if it's not set up properly, you won't be able to load your file. Please review the definitions in chapter 2 of the manual and the record layout in appendices B and C to determine the valid field content. The experienced aid administrators are accustomed to this format, but we do have some new professionals in the presentation now. So it's just something to review and follow. Keep in mind, for some of you new folks, the WSFA, which I'll be referring to throughout the presentation, is the Washington Application for Student Financial Assistance. So we really use FAFSA and WSFA pretty interchangeably, even though they're different. There is a sample CSV format on our website, and keep in mind that the layout for 21-22 has some significant changes. So the key is to determine which students you need to report. And this is basically a high-level review of what we're looking for. We have the need-based recipients, and those folks are the ones who filed the 21-22 FAFSA or WSFA, and it was required for the funds that are being reported. There are other students who need to be reported who also have need-based, they're considered need-based recipients, and they're for other programs where the FAFSA or WSFA may be needed, but aren't required. And then you have non-need-based federal loan recipients. We need you to report all federal loan recipients. So those would be the federal direct unsubsidized loan, federal plus loans, and federal grad plus loans. These are in Appendix A in the manual, and there are details about those programs. The intention of the unit record is to capture all financial aid disbursements in a unit record report. And we want to capture that information term by term. We use that information to build our reports on. We want you for the 21-22 information, you'll be using the 21-22 FAFSA or WSFA. Next year, we use the 22-23 FAFSA or WSFA. So it's really, we are basically a year behind the year you're currently awarding for. This is a list of the need-based programs to report. This is where FAFSA is required. You can read the list as well as I. I do want to just emphasize that the student teaching grant was reported under other state-funded gift assistance until the 2017-18 academic year. And then it wasn't funded in 2018-19, but it's been reported now under the teacher grant program since 2019, where it will continue to be reported until 21-22. So if you have any questions about these programs, please feel free to ask me or Ann or review the manual. That information is available. Other programs for need-based recipients are listed here. And we often get the question, why do you want this information? And it's really to provide a complete picture of state aid. So we know what's being used, how it's being spent, the students who are getting it, etc. Federal non-need-based loans to report are, as I said, the federal direct unsubsidized loan, federal parent plus loan, and federal grad plus loan. Basically, information that's reported for these will be minimal for students who aren't getting any other need-based aid. The FAFSA WSFA is required for dependent students without family information, but for those students who are receiving federal loans. Primarily, this is for those dependent students receiving the unsubsidized programs, federal unsubsidized programs. But we do want you to report all federal loan assistance. Basic Food Employment and Training, or BFET, are a subset of the worker retraining funds. And if your college receives these funds, we want you to report them under the worker retraining. This is something that we would like you to report, but we understand that but we do want it if you are able to report it. Changes for the 21-22 unit record report. Under the VA benefits, we've had a lot of conversation about this with some of you. And at this point, we want you to report only the veterans waivers or benefit programs that reduce the student's cost of attendance. So those programs where they don't affect the need calculation, we don't need you to report those. If you do, it'll just, you might get a call from us saying, why is your number so high, or why is it so low? But it's just something that we want you to be aware of. New field additions to the CSV header file record layout. Ann will be talking more about these when she gets to her portion of the presentation, but we have a new field called isDelete. And it's used to mark records that will be deleted from the unit record during a subsequent supplemental file upload, separate from the initial data upload. The default entry for this in the initial unit record file upload is N or no or false, or it may be left blank, but not 0. So keep in mind that you don't want to put a 0 in this field. Also, the WSOS Graduate Scholarship is a new WSOS program that was effective 21-22. And there are 5 reporting fields in the CSV header associated with this program. And those fields correspond to the 5 academic terms of reporting. So functional improvements to the unit record application. I hope you all will get as excited about this as Ann and I are. We think these are pretty nice changes in the functionality. But bulk overrides may be applied to similar errors in multiple records. So if you get the same error message, like number in college needs to be something and it needs to be greater than 1, and you have a canned response for those, you can actually check those errors and put the same message in. I think it's going to be a pretty nice change for you all. Supplemental file uploads can be added, deleted, or edited with multiple records. We have an automatic addition of records, not in the unit record that exists in WSAC applications. And really what we're doing is we're looking for consistency within for final reporting that happens in Seesaw, for example. We'll be able to compare unit record data to ICER, WASFA, and WSAC applications. And you'll be able to add notes to the unit record for our review, WSAC's review, at the submission. So you'll be able to tell us perhaps what's going on. And again, you'll see this in Ann's portion of the presentation. For more details, you can refer to page III in the manual for additional details. For the 22-23 unit record report, which will be next year, you may or may not know that WAVE, the Washington Award for Vocational Excellence, was reactivated beginning in the 22-23 academic year. The Workforce Board has taken applications actually this year, and I believe they are in the process of awarding. So the WAVE is alive and moving forward. We do also have potential for some additional new state-funded aid programs that were enacted by the legislature. As soon as we get details, they will be announced. This slide is basically the changes that we made to dollar values under the Pell National Guard grant and the WASOS graduate. You can see that slide if you need to reference it. The reporting requirements for all financial aid recipients should be reported in each of the 5 terms. Report non-need-based aid received for all need-based recipients. And you can see this list of required fields, and this shouldn't be a surprise to you. The rejected ICER WASFA needs to be input. You've got your SSN. These are just your traditional fields. And financial aid per term, even if it's one where they weren't enrolled, we want you to put 0 if there was no enrollment. The CSV requires a header role. And as I said, there is a revised sample in the manual. We want you to report the financial aid for each of the 5 terms. Summer 1 generally is used as a header. Fall, winter, semester schools, as an example of where that 0 would be used. If you are a semester school, you wouldn't have a value other than 0 in that enrollment. Spring, summer 2, generally used for trailer awards. Now, clock hour schools may have awards for all 5 terms. Question might be, when should you include summer aid in your reporting? Review Chapter 2 of the manual for detailed information. The summer aid reported are amounts received based on the 21-22 FAFSA or WASFA. So in general, your leader or header schools report summer 1 aid. And if that's the case, then summer 2 would have enrollment as 0. And vice versa, trailer schools would report summer 2 and summer 1 would be 0. Clock hour schools may report aid for both summer terms. And yes, we got it from Danette. If you do use borrower-based academic year for your loans, you also can use the 5 terms, would have information in those 5 terms. Other fields to report, you can see on this, we still want you to continue to report the ISA or WSFA transaction number. This is really important because this is how we compare the FAFSA information to the unit record information. The rejected ISA or WSFA, marital status, are they dependent, and need duration, need amount, cost of attendance. All information that need to be reported. So now I want to talk about some of the selected fields where they may be a little bit different. And the first one, of course, is Social Security numbers. Social Security numbers really, it's how we connect the information to the right student. So keep in mind, duplicates are not accepted. If there are duplicate Social Security numbers, your file won't upload. We don't want you to use dummy numbers. So we've had instances where all 9s or all 0s will be used. They need to have a valid Social Security number sequence. The Social Security numbers for WCG, CBS, and Passport to College recipients will be compared to the WSAC Seesaw records. And those Social Security numbers of recipients for other WSAC applications like Teacher and National Guard programs will be compared to WSAC records. Discrepancies will show on your error reports. Keeping the guidance for resolution of Social Security numbers is included in the unit record manual. Generally, if you have to match, if there's a problem, we look at the unit record Seesaw or obligation tracker records to match that Social Security number. And if you find any discrepancies, you're going to need to contact WSAC to correct the data to make sure the history is correct. You're primarily going to work with Ann on these Social Security number issues. Year in school. This is, you all have seen this, and I just want to remind you that a year in school is required for all recipients. But keep in mind, you need to report the status as of the beginning of the term of the recipient's last financial aid disbursement for the 21-22 year. So, for example, if a student is a sophomore in the fall term, but then by spring term, they are a junior, and they had disbursement, you would need to report them as a junior. Just a reminder. Other considerations for year in school: don't automatically consider or use the FAFSA or WSFA for the year in school that the student reported. They're self-reported, as you know, and very often they are not correct. Report the highest year in school for which the student attended when the student's financial aid was dispersed. And if you have non-matriculated students who receive some sort of need-based aid, you would need to report those as a code 8 or other. This usually applies to Running Start or other Running Start students. And they may or may not get need-based aid since you don't have a FAFSA from which to determine that need. Family information, family size. If they're dependents, they should have a family size of 2 or higher. If they're independent, it should be 1 or higher. Number in college, it must be at least 1, and it can't exceed the family size. We get this pretty frequently, believe it or not. And parents' enrollment in college should not be included unless it's a professional judgment decision. And really, we're looking again for all of these fields to align across the unit record, Seesaw, and the FAFSA WSFA. Family income, both taxable and untaxed, are based on a review of the 21-22 FAFSA or WSFA. Generally, the 2019 income is reported for the FAFSA or the WSFA. If a professional judgment decision was made, report that income. And additionally, if there was a change, substantive change, make sure those changes are submitted through the federal processor or through WSFA, and update that seesaw record. Our records are going to indicate the most recent FAFSA file from which you paid. So if you did not submit the correction to the federal processor and there was a change, we're not going to have that updated change, and we're probably going to question it. Report integers without dollar signs or cents. So for example, if it's 44,010, you just report the 44010. Keep in mind, the family income is the only place in the unit record file where negative numbers can be used. Report the expected family contribution. Use the federal methodology calculation that's produced by the U.S. Department of Education based on the 21-22 FAFSA or the WSFA. We're asking those institutions that use an institutional methodology to please use the federal methodology EFC if it produces a different EFC. Again, adjustments may be made by professional judgment decisions, but we ask that, especially for these expected family contribution changes, that you submit that correction so that the EFC is correct. The EFC should reflect the number of months reported in the need duration. We'll see that in a minute. So cost of attendance, you all have that. And some institutions use several budgets to reflect the changes in the students' living expenses. Report the student budget amount related to the need amount. It should be based on the number of months reported in the need duration. So cost of attendance, need duration, and EFC must align for the same number of months. If your standard attendance is 9 months, then that everything usually defaults to the 9-month cost, EFC, etc. But if for some reason you adjust that cost of attendance to 6 months, then the need duration and EFC need to align with that 6-month period of time. Here's our favorite calculation. The elements that are used to determine need is cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution to get that need amount. The need duration is based on all three numbers in the number of months reported. So for the need amount, report the amount used in the disbursement of aid. In this instance, for the need amount, it needs to be 0 or higher. We don't want negative values listed on the need amount on the unit record. If you do that, then I get to go in and change all those negatives to zeros. So a negative doesn't affect, it doesn't give any more or less, and we don't really look at that negative. So if it's negative, change it to 0. Need duration is probably the area where we have the least consistency. We want you to report the need duration based on the number of months for which the need amount and cost of attendance were reported. And normally that's integers from 1 to 12. The majority of institutions that we deal with are on the 9-month budget. And so that's fairly easy. But an example is if a student leaves after 1 term, you aren't required to recalculate everything to the 3-month duration. You can, but it's not required. So if a student attends and you award for the full year, but they leave after a term, you don't have to recalculate. However, if you do change one element and it's adjusted, then all the student budget components must be adjusted to match. We're looking for consistency in the same time period, and it gives us really a better idea about what the true cost of attendance is and the need that student has. So try and be consistent with that. This is just a list of the enrollment status codes. So the undergraduate enrollment status, and then what the translation to unit record codes are. One thing about clock hours is that their term awards are for full-time enrollment, except for that final term, and it may be paid for part-time enrollment status, unless, as the note says, the student is out of QER. This is just approximate term dates for clock hour institutions. Yours may be similar. They may be different to a degree, but this is just to give you an idea of what we look for in clock hour start and end dates. For a Washington College grant, college-bound scholarship, and passport to college, report the final awards and enrollment levels of the student at the time of disbursement. The unit record reporting tool is going to be checking against Seesaw records. So based on that comparison, you may receive a differences report for either one or all three or two of those fund programs. It's important that you look at the differences report because that will help you verify recipients and make sure that the awards have been correctly reported. And we'll be responding to edits on this when you get those discrepancies. We want you to report tuition waiver dollars for WCG and CBS recipients. It's required for 21-22. We need to really get an accurate representation of all forms of assistance that needy students are receiving. And we want you to include the full assessed tuition and fee amounts and each student's cost of attendance to reflect the tuition prior to application of any waivers. So the cost of attendance should not be reduced to accommodate for waivers. Report waivers as financial aid in the appropriate field. So they're either need-based institutional gift aid or non-need-based institutional gift aid. Whatever your category is how you would report it. For state work study, you report on-campus and off-campus employment separately. Report the student's total gross earnings, including employer match or institutional share. For these last couple of years, we have allowed a state work study grant. So you would still report those grants in the state work study total gross earnings. You want to include summer employment. You report either the actual gross earnings based on the monthly cutoff dates or institutional payroll dates, or the average gross term earnings over the academic year for all terms the student was enrolled half-time. State work study staff review this section for accuracy and may contact if there's substantial difference between reporting and year-end recon records on file with state work study. You want to report institutional gift aid as either need-based institutional or non-need-based institutional. So if we would consider need-based if they were solely or partially awarded based on the review of a 21-22 FAFSA or WASFA. For non-need-based institutional gift aid, the grants are not predicated on whether a FAFSA or a WSAC has been filed. And that would include institutional funds awarded to Running Start or non-matriculated students. For other state funded gift assistance, this category is where you would put those state funds that don't really fit in the other categories. And we've listed some examples here: the American Indian Endowed Scholarship, Gold Star Book Stipend, Washington Scholars, or the WAVE. Currently, that may change down the road with the reinstitution of it, but these are just examples of those that would fit under other state funded gifts. Edits. So edits, and I think we're moving to starting them errors now, just to differentiate how we look at them, but they ensure data quality. So when you get an edit, we try to create edits that really help us make sure everything's working the way it should be working. And if a student is receiving only non-need-based federal loans, for example, there may not be as many non-overridable edits. So we call those a little softer. FAFSA-related edits are also softer for students not receiving FAFSA or WSAC required aid types. Our goal is to really address those errors that affect the report and the quality of what we're reporting. There are errors that will prevent the file upload, and they are listed in Appendix C, which is page 80 in the manual. And just some examples of errors that prevent it are, as I talked about earlier, duplicate SSNs, invalid codes, header row missing or invalid. Just review all 12 items. These are important, and they could frustrate you. So if you know in advance what they are, you may be able to address them beforehand. A blank in the rejected ICER WSFA field will cause the file to reject. So make sure that you have what is necessary in that rejected file. Non-overridable error examples are if you have a resident with the WCG or other state aid, students are required to be Washington state residents. So if there's a conflict there, you're going to get a non-overridable error. If the number in college is greater than family size, and if the valid institutional, there's no valid institutional state work study allocation in the portal. All these things will create non-overridable errors. Overridable error examples also in Appendix C from pages 80 to 83 are as follows. You've got a need amount of 0 with need-based aid. So here, there's a budget changed with dropped credits, for example. Year in school for aid types. We get this very frequently, and it's why it's overridable. If the student graduated mid-year, they change from an undergraduate to a graduate, and you're going to get an overridable error in that example. Cost of attendance minus expected family contribution does not equal the need amount reported by the college. And date of birth outside the normal range we've changed that. It's now an informational message only. So you aren't going to get an error that you'll have to speak to. We have created some informational messages so that you know it, on those you would probably want to verify. We've put a pretty wide, the normal range is pretty wide now. So it may be something you want to take a look at to make sure you reported the right birth, but it won't stop it. So reminders on those edits. Keep the override comments brief, but we need enough detail so that we can understand what your edit response is. Report family income using the WCG income calculation, not the federal total income from the FAFSA without appropriate adjustments. Income reported in CSA for 21-22 should reflect the WCG income calculation. And the family income, just as a reminder, for a dependent student, you count the parent's adjusted gross income and non-taxable income. You don't include the student's income. And conversely, for an independent student, you count the student's adjusted gross income and non-taxable income and that of the spouse if the student is married. For both dependent and independent students, use the sum of all taxable plus non-taxable income if the AGI is not present. So basically the parent or the student is a non-tax filer. The ISER WASFA transaction number reported should be the most recent used to award the student. That doesn't mean it's necessarily the last one filed. We use this to compare the FAFSA WASFA to the unit record and CSA for discrepancies related to family income, family size, number in college, or expected family contribution. And something that's new on the unit record through the 3.0 implementation is you now can compare those elements on a tab in the unit record. Just a few reminders: report an adjusted expected family contribution according to the need duration if a student attended less than full-time full year, if that's your standard practice. If one element is adjusted, you must adjust all. EFC, need, cost of attendance, and need duration must all be consistently aligned. Report all known race categories for each student, even where Hispanic origin is marked Y. This eliminates gaps in the research data. Tips and best practices. Upload your CSV file early. Don't wait for the deadline, especially this year. Anne will be opening some tutorials. I think she's working on that now for those of you who might want those with the new system. But because it is new and the navigation is different, start early so that you can do what you need to do. Review the WSAC's 21-22 unit record manual and training materials and test your upload using the portal training environments. Keep in mind that when you use the portal training, it changes overnight. So if you've made some adjustments and you weren't able to complete what you wanted to do, they'll be gone tomorrow and you'll need to redo it. Use the unit record informational reports to check for consistency and validity. And for the CTCs, review the SBCTC 21-22 unit record processing guides when they are available. And please contact us with questions or issues that aren't addressed in the unit record manual. We really had to make, with the changes that we made this year, we think we got everything. And but if there's something that's missing, let us know, because if you're missing it, others might be as well. Do you have any questions on any of this that I've gone through before we go through the portal? You can use your QA to do that if you did have any, and I'll be looking at that. But if there are no questions, Anne, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Marla. I don't see any questions at the moment, so we'll go ahead and move forward. Most of you have already been to the portal and are familiar with its location. The direct URL is shown at the top of the screen. There is another indirect way to get to that if you go to our WSAC main webpage, which is at wasac.wa.gov. Along the top menu bar and under administration, there's a drop down. Just below that drop down is a direct link to this portal location. So the first item is to log in. If you want to log in directly to the unit record report, there is a link here that will take you to that menu item. Otherwise, if you have other work that you're planning on doing, you can click the login here on the right-hand corner, and that will take you to a new login screen. We now have what we call two-factor authentication as you enter the portal. And you will be asked to enter your email and password. If it's been more than 36 hours since you've entered the portal or portal training, it will then take you to this secondary login screen. The default is for the site to send your authentication code through your email address, your login email. And once you receive that code, you would enter it into this box here. I would click remember this browser, because if you time out or exit the website at any point and then try to come back in, if you have not checked this box, it will ask you to go back through this authentication system again. As you notice, if your code didn't arrive, there are other options to receiving your authentication code. You do need to do some pre-setup for that, and we recommend that you select perhaps something other than your email. And the reason for that is that if you're working in portal training, it is not a production site, and it cannot send you an email to provide that authentication code to you. It has a disabled email system because it is not production. So how you would do that, it was you would go back up to the main menu on the portal, and under the common menu, you will see a My Account option. When you go into that option, you will see your email, which is your login address. If you need to update it, you can do that by clicking the edit button. Here it shows no phone. If you put either a phone number for a landline or a cell phone, that is the backup. And here, if you put a cell phone in there, it can send you a text. If it's a landline or a cell phone, you can get a voice call. So if for some reason you don't receive your authentication code through that email, you can then select either one of these options. So click the update, follow the prompts, enter in your phone number. We suggest a cell phone because at that point, if you're away from your desk and you don't have access to your work phone number or your work email, then it has this other option for you to receive your authentication code. I would also click remember this browser. There's an opportunity to change your password, or if you'd prefer to use an authenticator app to receive your authentication code, this is the link that you would follow in order to install that. And that would be this final option down here where it says I have an access code. What that does is if you click that, it will activate this so that you receive the access code through that authenticator app. Then you can also update things like your name and your personal pronouns. All right, once you're actually in the portal, under Programs, click the drop down and select the unit record. You'll see a different welcome screen than you're used to seeing in the past. There is just some quick information that tells you a little bit about some of the changes that you'll see, but it does have a different look and feel. This is the navigation, and essentially you aren't able to move to the next step until you've completed the prior step. So you can also download a copy of the CSV header from this point right here, where it says download template, and that also is a new item. To select your file, click your browse button, choose your file, and then click start upload. If your upload file fails, you will receive an error message. I believe because I was taking the screenshot from the demonstrator site, it did not provide a full error message. But if you have several, you can download a file with those errors by clicking this button here. And then after you have downloaded your errors, discard your file. Once you've discarded your file, you're going to want to go back into your upload file, make those corrections, and attempt the file upload again. Once you've successfully uploaded your file, you will get a message that tells you that. And then this is the screen that provides you with a summary of your student count by year in school. If you don't have populations in each of these categories, they won't show, so it will self-adjust according to the type of classes that your particular school has. If everything looks like it matches your records, go ahead and click the continue button. This is a copy of the main error screen. You have the option to drop down this menu here. You can choose from 5 records per screen, I think up to 1,000. So, you know, once you select this, that should hold during your time in the unit record portal. So as you move about and work in other screens and you come back to this, this error screen, that should hold. Here is your messages in terms of whether an item is overridable or whether it's a must fix. In order to see the entire error message, if it overflows the space that's available on the screen, hover your cursor over the message and you will receive a pop-up box with the full error message there. You can also download the file by clicking this button here. You can sort this error list as in the past by any one of these column headers, but you can also click and choose your view according to the error status and according to error type. And here are examples of what is contained within that drop down box, what your options are for status. New messages, must fix, overridable, overridden, or informational. And here, this list will change according to the types of errors that you see. So in other words, it doesn't list all of the available error types. It lists only those ones that are contained within your unit record. Once again, to view the entire error text, you can hover. The must fix are non-overridable errors. So the language is shifted a little bit. The example I provide here doesn't show any must fix, but they would appear here. The red overridable are those that you can either correct or provide an override reason if you believe what you've entered in the unit record is correct. And in order to open that student record, you would click on the Social Security number. It is highlighted. When you enter the student screen, you will now see there are 4 tabs along the top. Your errors are in that final tab, and it will tell you how many errors there are and list them down below, similar to what you saw on the main edit screen. You would navigate within this student record by clicking the different tabs. You'll notice here the Social Security numbers are not highlighted, which means that since you're in the student record itself, to have an active link there will not take you anywhere else, so they are not highlighted. You do have to move within the record by clicking on the tabs. You can also download and work with these errors within an Excel file to kind of do an overview and make decisions about how you want to approach them. You can process your overrides from here, or if you prefer, out of that main error screen for the full institution, depending on the types of errors and how your institution processes. I know some schools are large enough that they appoint certain people to do certain types of errors. And, those can be selected. If you're within an individual student screen, which we are here, there's an option to view all error types and select which ones. That is probably most helpful whenever you're in the full institutional error screen instead of the individual, because you're only going to find one error for each type within an individual student record. So you would enter corrections in the details and terms tabs, and then any resolved errors will actually disappear from this error screen. After you're all done working within the record, you would make sure that you click save, otherwise it will not retain the information. Here's an example of a student detail screen. You'll find that it includes all the same information that you would have seen in the demographics tab of the old unit record. And it may be arranged a little bit differently. We have the direct student detail here, ethnicity. This is the ICER WASFA information, their budget, and then family information down in this other corner. In order to make changes here, you would just edit directly into the data field itself. The terms tab is what we used to label, I think, the financial aid tab. And it's an interesting change that we've made. Initially, it should show you only the aid that the student received as shown on the data you've submitted. There is a way to show all of the programs that are reportable if you need to make changes or additions. Here is the show all. If you click this button, it will then drop down the entire list of programs. It will have pre-filled zeros wherever there is not information. And then you can click to lock it. And at that point, it will then show the entire list of programs once you move on to the next record. If you click to unlock it and then unclick this show all, it will revert back to this abbreviated view that shows only the active programs where you've shown an award paid out. Once again, you would click directly into the fields to make the changes you need. This is the On File tab, and as you see, it will compare the information that you've provided in the unit record with our Seesaw and other WSAC program data. And you see here some of these other programs, so the teacher and the National Guard, those are actually checked against what we call our obligation tracker. That is the part of the portal where our WSAC staff enter information for those programs. So if there are any award amounts to show, those would be appearing down in this area. This is from the demonstration site, so there is no valid ICE or WSFA information for any of the students that we have entered. So you see this particular column is blank. However, if you have a student with ICE or WSFA data, that is where it will show. You see all of these are green checks, which means that the information matches. If there is any data element here that does not match records either in ICE or WSFA or in the program data, you will see a red X in this column. So it will highlight that to you for review and correction. As I mentioned, overrides can be applied from within the student error tab or from the main institution error screen. Before you start entering overrides from the institution error screen, we do recommend that you review the student record first to be sure that whatever override information you put in there is accurate. And that is one of the items that I want to caution you about with regard to the bulk overrides. You do want to be sure that the override that you apply to a bulk override when you're talking about several records is actually applicable to each of the records that you choose. So, okay, in order to make corrections or add overrides, you click on the error message that you're addressing. You move up into this override reason, enter your override reason, and then click override errors. And you'll see that here this is red, it's an unaddressed override. It will turn to green if it's been saved. You can take a look at your override reason very quickly by hovering your cursor over the blue icon or the overridden language. And once again, it will pop up a little box that provides you with that information. If you want to see the override reason as part of the actual errors list itself, click on the green override text, and the comment then shows up down here below that error message. And you can, then do that for your entire list so you can see what your errors are and how you responded to them. This little icon, that caret, it will, if you click that, it will collapse that back behind to be hidden. The one thing I do want to mention is that overrides cannot be edited in terms of adding information, but you can delete a message if you want to change the information or add to it. Once again, you click on the row which contains that message that you need to edit. Delete the override by clicking delete one override, or however many it will add them up for you and indicate there. And once you have done that, it will ask you to confirm the delete. And at that point, you can go back through that process to enter a new override, make sure you've got the record clicked, and then enter that in and click the override. In terms of resolving any Social Security number differences, there are two situations, and the resolution of those are different. If the incorrect Social Security number originates outside of the unit record, perhaps in Seesaw or in the obligation tracker for the teacher and National Guard grant programs, you do need WSAC assistance to correct it. There is a button that says send us an email. That will open up the secure email system, and then you can provide us with information about which student, what is the correct Social Security number, and indicate what was the incorrect one. Once you send that to us, we'll initiate that correction with our IT staff, and then as soon as that correction has been made, it will clear from the unit record. If it happens to be an error that originates within the unit record itself, all you need to do is click the student's Social Security number in the main error screen, and then open and correct the student record, enter save. And if you don't have that student initially visible, you can click through the search students options in order to find and correct that student record. There is the availability of bulk override processing. And from the main error screen for the institution, you would then select the error type, because generally speaking, your errors resolution for a type may be similar reasons. And so first you would select the error type that you wish to address. And then if you are correcting all of the student records with the same error type, with the same override reason, you can click this little box right next to the Social Security number. It will select all of the records that are within this error type that currently show on the screen. Then you would move back up to the override reason, enter your reason, and you'll see that it has told you how many errors it is corrected based on how many records are selected. If you click that, and then save, all of these will then change to green overridden. Okay. To delete those same overrides, if you find that that reason that you've given is incorrect, you can do the same thing within that same error type. Click that, and then there is this gray delete overrides. It will right now it's grayed out, but it will become a darker shade of gray, and it will allow you to delete the overrides. Let me just say one other thing. If you find that you didn't want to delete all of these within that record, make sure that this is unclicked, and then you can select the specific record so that you're not doing them all at once. You can select which of these records that you want to perform a bulk override or a bulk delete override to. So this is only if you want to do all of them with the same reasoning, but you can select, you can be selective about which ones you choose to apply a bulk override to. Okay, in order to search for existing unit records that are within your file, there are two locations you can do that. You can click this Search Students button that's on this upload screen. Or if you go to the very top of your screen, there is a Pages button. And when you click that, it will show a drop down for Search Students. You click that. They both go to the same place. This is the search screen. You would fill out whatever information you need to identify that particular student record and click Search. It will bring a drop down of all of the records that meet that criteria. Say you only entered a first name or a last name, then it will bring up a set of records that match that criteria. In order to open that record, click on the highlighted Social Security number. Once you have edited the record in whichever excuse me, term or details page that you needed to address, you would then click Save. If you're attempting to delete that record, you can click this gray delete box and it will then delete the record. There is one caveat to that. You will be unable to delete any record that was added to your unit record, that was auto-loaded by WSAC based on the fact that we didn't see a unit record for a student for whom we show award payments. Those will be added to your records upon upload. Those you cannot delete, but only enter an override for whatever error it is. With those records, we will delete them after your unit record is submitted and whatever error is addressed. Quite often it may indicate that there is a return that's due back to the unit, to the WSAC that perhaps has not yet been returned. And so, that's one way of capturing where funds may need to be returned. So, okay, once you've made the corrections, click Save or Delete, as the case may be. You can return to List, and it will take you back to the search screen. From there, click Go to Report to exit the search function. In order to manually add a student record, there are two areas again where you can add a new unit record. From the upload screen, even though it shows errors, from the upload screen, or I guess the error screen as well, you can click Add a Record. From the upload page, there is an Add a Record button, and also from the error screen, you also have an Add a Record button as well. It will then open up a blank record, and we ask that you fill out both the details and the terms tabs fully, and then save to retain the record. All aid has to be reported by term. If the term is not applicable, report not enrolled, and 0 funding in each of the program categories. And these are the drop-down boxes that show up at the top of that term screen in order to change any of the enrollment categories here. And this is just a breakout of all of the programs that are reportable in the unit record. You will receive immediate feedback in that student's error tab if additional edits are needed. You'll see that errors tab will then show up, and it will tell you what the errors are that need to be addressed. All right. In order to delete a student record, you can find and open that student record from the errors screen, or go up into that search screen from the tabs that I showed you in an earlier slide. Click delete, and then it will ask you to confirm the delete. As I mentioned, if it turns out that this is a record where we have award data that has not been addressed and we're expecting to see a record, and you will find that that record will not disappear. It will retain it, and in that situation, you will be asked to enter an override reason why that record should be deleted. And if it's because that student did not receive the award that we show in our records, let us know that you're returning those funds to us. There is the ability now to perform a supplemental file upload. And this is used to add or delete records, or to make changes to multiple records simultaneously. You can include mixed types of changes in that single supplemental file. You must use a valid CSV header as the top row of the file, and include complete student record information in each data row. So in other words, this partial file is not a partial record for each student. It is a full record for the students that are affected. However, it's not a full upload of your entire population. It is just, excuse me, a change file for the records that you need to make edits or adjustments to. If you're editing existing records, as I mentioned, you need to retain the full data for the student, and you change only those fields that are needing edit. This supplemental file will override existing data for that. So if you take out information that needs to be reported, that will then reflect in the student record once you've uploaded it, and may trigger additional errors for that student. So be sure that you retain any existing data and only change the ones for which you need to make an adjustment. You cannot discard a supplemental file after it's uploaded without deleting the full unit record data. So there is a tab for delete file on that upload page. If you do that, it will delete your entire unit record with all your edits. So the only way to fix something if you've uploaded a file that was not correct is to upload a compensating supplemental file to reverse your changes, or edit those individual records from the search or errors screen. And here's a cutaway example. The is delete column is brand new. In your initial upload, all of the is delete comment should say false, no, or be left blank. And that will indicate that it is a record that remains in the unit record once it's uploaded. In a supplemental file, if you place true in that column, it will indicate that you want to delete that particular student record. Okay. And if you're entering an adjustment, you would show false because you're not trying to delete that record, but then you would make whatever changes you need to in that student record row. Okay. So after you create your supplemental file, you go back to this upload page. There is a button for add file. You browse for your change file and then click start upload. If it's successful, you will receive that successfully uploaded message right away. then you can continue, which will then take you back through this errors navigation screen. You're now able to add explanatory notes for WSAC staff to review after you've submitted your unit record. You can add a note at any time during this process, whether you're in the error screen or if you're in the review screen or in the submit screen. Click the add a note button and it will take you to this page. Just anything we should know, feel free to leave us a detailed note. Be sure to mention which page or screen you are on, the student you are looking at, and then we'll see it after you submit your report. So there is a space here for you to enter your note, then click Save Note. And multiple notes can be entered by different users. It does form a history in the unit record, and they are editable. I don't see it here on this particular screen, but you can go back in and edit. I believe I may be able to show you that on a different screen, but if it's not in these slides, there is more detail in the manual itself. Although I say they are editable, they're only editable by the original writer. In other words, if someone else in your institution is wanting to modify something that's said here, it's a matter of adding a note. So they are not editable by others apart from the original writer. And then once again, after you have addressed all your errors and you've made any changes that are necessary, click to review, which will move you into this next screen. What you see here is the preliminary program totals report that you're all familiar with. It's formatted a little bit differently. Instead of the awards and the amount being in two separate sections for each year, they are now shown as one column side by side for each of those years. But please review. If you find any surprises that you're not expecting in terms of percentage changes between the last 2 years, you may want to go back into your student records to make adjustments, or you may want to make a note if you understand what the cause of that is, so that that provides us with that information up front when we're reviewing your unit record, because those questions will come up to us as well if we find large differences in the percentage from one year to the next. We do ask that you download this report that will be used for comparison in your next unit record a year from now, because we will be looking at the percentage changes. And at this point, this is a preliminary report. It contains all of your information for both need-based and non-need-based students, if you upload the information in that way. And what that means is that there will be a change in January when we run the final report. And at that time, we remove all extraneous information that we identify as fully non-need-based students that have not $1 of need-based aid or have no federal loans. So it will change some of the number of recipients and the awards paid at that point. So it's also a good comparison for that final that comes out in January. So we ask that you download the PDF now and again in January when the final comes out, because those will be useful to you, not just at this point in time, but also at the time of the next year's unit record reviews. If everything appears correct, go ahead and click the confirm report. You'll see another screen that then asks you to confirm the report and continue to the submit. This is the submit page. Before you can click the submit button, which does not appear here, you must review the differences reports for the WCG, CBS, and Passport to College. And that is located right here on the screen. Each program, as you'll see, is a separate report. It will bring up a screen where there's a drop down, and then you can review each of those. Any differences that remain on that must be addressed or accounted for in some way. You'll see that some of the differences may be addressed. Let me see if I can go to the next screen. Yes, here's an example of a differences report for Washington College grant. And you'll see here it still shows there's some differences and it hasn't been overridden, which I would say normally at this point in time you won't see in the enhanced unit record. If there is a yes in this overridden column, it means you've already addressed it, told us why there is a difference if you're returning funds. If there is a no, it means that it has not been addressed. So perhaps there's a Social Security issue that you may have submitted a correction for, but it hasn't yet been processed on our end, or it could indicate a missing student record. As I said, we think that there will be very few that will need additional handling at this point, but we do want you to, take a look at it and understand what may still be outstanding in this area. Once you've taken a look at that and understood whether anything needs to be corrected, you can return to the report summary. And if changes do need to be made, we do expect that you will go back into the unit record, into either this errors area and select your student records and then make those corrections. But essentially we're thinking that because we capture a lot of the information up front with the missing student records that we preload with your upload, there will be very few additional items that you need to address at this point. Once you've addressed your corrections and are ready to move forward, click review. I have reviewed the report, and it will bring up this submit button. So once you're ready to submit, click the submit. It will ask you to confirm. And we do ask you to pause at this point, because once you have clicked this confirm button, you are not able to re-enter the unit record without WSAC staff help. If everything is as it should be, and you are confident that your data is correct, go ahead and click the confirm. You will receive a successfully submitted message right away. One additional option that you have is to download a point-in-time unit record data file. This actually is not new. The ability to download a point-in-time data file has been available to you for several years now. However, it was not located at the submit screen. It was available through the search screen. And there was a button, and now the function of the search report download is different. The report that you receive from that search screen is not going to be your full data download. In order to download that file on this, you can go back to the upload screen, and down here there is a button for download report. It will include all of the edits that you've entered and saved to that point in time. So actually you can do a download report mid-unit record if for some reason you may be thinking about discarding your upload partway through, and then you don't lose your errors. I mean, your edits that have been entered already. It is a point in time download. So if you needed to do that somewhere back in here to see, you know, to keep a record of what you have and then make some additional changes, you can come back and discard and then re-upload the new one and start from that point to make, you know, additional changes. We do recommend you do this at the end when you've submitted your report, only because then you can keep a copy for your institutional records of what your final report was at the time of your submission. And as I mentioned, it can be useful to create a data file for your supplemental file uploads. You can then, you know, keep all of the records that you want to make additional edits to, if you have like a bulk edit you need to make in a particular program column or something, and then delete all the others, then you have that full data row for the records that you need to make changes to. So there are other reports that are available immediately. These blue reports are available for the current year. After we have reopened the unit record for the following year, these will no longer be available to you. However, that's the point at which I think the profile reports become active. If you want to look at a profile report from a prior year, there is a drop down here that you can select a separate year, say 2019, 2020. It goes back, I think, 4 years, and then you can download your profile reports. As you see, the profile reports here are currently grayed out because they will not be available for 21-22 until January of 2023. And at that point, these 4 profile reports will be available to you. As I mentioned, you can select profile reports from a prior year by changing that drop-down box. With that, Marla and I are at a conclusion. We thank you for participating with us to learn about the new 3.0 enhanced program. We'd like to open it up for questions at this point, if there are any. Okay, I'm not seeing any entered into the Q&A or in the chat.
I just want to thank Anne for all the work that she has done on this. Any questions that you have, we're happy to answer. And once you start getting into this, we hope it's intuitive enough that you're able to do what you need to do. But we are available to you at any time. Well, you know, work time. But we really appreciate the time you've taken this morning to meet with us. And really thank you. We had a work group of folks who helped us test and gave us really good feedback. And we hope that you are pleased with what the results are. I guess we'll find out in a month or so. But please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. And we look forward to working with you. But thank you for your time. A couple of reminders. We are making a recording and it will be posted later. And we'll review them and post one of the two best. We have 4 sessions, 2 of these general ones, and then we'll have 2, one for the legacy CTC system and one for the new system. And those will be specific to your processing. And we're just pretty excited about this Unit Record 3.0. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, I do notice an error here that we didn't catch. This is actually the 21-22 unit record manual that's available currently. I know, I'm shocked. I thought we'd gone through this pretty thoroughly, but I'm just now noticing that. But it is available on our unit record website here at this URL. The best email to reach us at is that unitrecord@wasac.wa.gov, and our personal contact information is located down here as well. As Marla mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are going to be offering a series of tutorials, and those will be performed on our demo site, so that I will be going out with several dates. And I ask that you email me directly about your interest and which would be the best date for you. We are limiting participation to a small group in order to have a manageable size, because it is hands-on. What will happen is once we have you registered to a particular date, I will be creating a demo file. It's just a very small one, but they are individual to you and to your what I'd call your test institution. So those would be created in the morning, and then the demo, hands-on demo online takes place in the afternoon. You will be working with a download file, and I will be working with one to demonstrate on Zoom. So you just kind of follow along as you know, we walk through each of the steps. That will be coming out very soon. Hopefully we'll start that within the next week or so. So you can look forward to seeing that. The unit record will open on August the 8th this year and close on October the 10th. And, you know, during that time, as Marla said, we are available to you. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any issues or questions or concerns. With that, we'd like to close out the session, and thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.